You know what's funny? People think power is loud. They think it's the slam of a door, the sharp suit, the confident laugh, the way someone walks into a room like they own the oxygen. But real power is quiet. Real power is the person nobody clocks, the person nobody fears, the person nobody prepares for. And that's been you. For 10 years. 10 years of letting them think you were slow. 10 years of letting them think you are harmless. 10 years of watching them talk over you. 10 years of letting them explain things you already understood. 10 years of hearing that fake patience in their voice. That sweet, sugary patience. The kind that's not kindness. The kind that's a flex. And you swallowed it. Not because you couldn't fight. Not because you didn't know how. Because you were playing a longer game than they could even imagine. And now the game just shifted. Because a power player just realized. Not suspected, not wondered, not got a weird feeling. Realized. The kind of realization that hits like a cold wave. The kind that makes someone sit still and stare at nothing. The kind that makes their stomach drop like an elevator cable snapped. They just realized you've been playing dumb for 10 years straight. And that changes everything. Because once someone like that sees you, they can't unsee you. Let's go back. Not all the way back, just enough. Back to the first time you learned something important. Back to the first time you understood how the world actually works. You were younger, not clueless, just hopeful. You walked into a place where people smiled too hard. Where compliments had sharp edges, where help came with a leash attached. Maybe it was a job, maybe it was school, maybe it was a family table where every word had rules. You showed up ready, not arrogant, not loud, just ready. And you noticed something in the first week, maybe the first day. You noticed that people weren't rewarded for being smart. They were rewarded for being convenient. They were rewarded for being predictable. They were rewarded for making the powerful feel safe. And you, without even planning it at first, did the one thing that saved you. You made yourself look safe, not weak. Safe. That's a difference. Weak looks like begging. Weak looks like falling apart. Safe looks like, oh, don't worry about me. Safe looks like, I'm just happy to be here. Safe looks like, no, you go ahead. Safe looks like a person who won't challenge the throne. And they loved that. Of course they did. Because power players don't fear talent. They fear competition. And competition doesn't announce itself with skill. It announces itself with hunger. It announces itself with confidence. It announces itself with a shine in the eyes. So you dimmed the shine. You learned to soften your voice. You learned to pause before you answered. You learned to act like you were still figuring it out. You learned to ask questions you didn't need answered. And the first time you did it, you felt weird. Because you're not a liar by nature. You're not fake. You don't enjoy pretending. But you were learning something deeper than honesty. You were learning survival. You were learning positioning. You were learning the kind of discipline that doesn't feel heroic in the moment. It feels humiliating. It feels like swallowing glass. It feels like watching someone else get applause for what you built. And you did it anyway. Because you saw the pattern. You saw the way the loud ones got targeted. You saw the way the confident ones got tested. You saw the way anyone who shined too bright got cut down. Not because they were wrong, but because they made the wrong people feel small. So you chose a different path. You chose camouflage. And the wild part is, it worked immediately. They looked right through you. They stopped checking for you. They stopped guarding themselves around you. They stopped editing their mouths when you were nearby, because in their mind, you were background, just there, a helper, a nice one, a sweet kid, a hard worker, never a threat. And that's the first mistake they made. They confused silence with emptiness. They confused humility with lack. They confused your restraint with your limit. And you let them, because you weren't collecting compliments. You were collecting information, not in some dramatic spy way, in a human way, in a practical way. You were watching how they moved. You were noticing who got nervous around who. You were noticing who smiled at the boss and kicked down at everyone else. You were noticing who forgot to include names in emails. You were noticing who always took credit. You were noticing who never apologized. You were noticing who kept their promises. You were noticing who only kept promises when people were watching. And you were learning the biggest lesson of all. Most power players don't feel powerful. They feel terrified. They just hide it better. They hide it behind titles, behind attitude, behind speed, behind constant motion. Because if they ever slowed down, if they ever sat in silence, they might hear the truth, that their power is borrowed, that it can be taken, that it depends on other people believing in it. And you stopped believing in it a long time ago. You saw behind the curtain. You saw the insecurity in the expensive watch. You saw the panic in the fake confidence. You saw the need underneath the control. And you started to understand something. If power is built on perception, then perception is the battlefield, and you are becoming a master of it. Slowly, quietly, painfully. 10 years sounds dramatic, but it didn't feel like 10 years while you were inside it. It felt like Tuesdays. It felt like normal days. It felt like little moments stacked on top of each other. It felt like the kind of life nobody writes movies about. Because the truth is, your story wasn't fireworks. It was endurance. It was repetition. It was you walking into places where people didn't see you, and choosing not to scream for attention, because screaming would have cost you access. And access is everything. Access to rooms, access to conversations, access to the truth. And the more invisible you became, the more they showed you. They showed you who they were when they thought you couldn't judge them. They showed you what they valued. They showed you what scared them. They showed you what they'd do to keep the throne. And sometimes you'd go home and just sit. Not because you were tired, because you were holding in so much. Holding in what you knew. Holding in what you wanted to say. Holding in that urge to correct them. Because you could correct them. You could have embarrassed them. You could have done it clean. One sentence, one fact, one calm look. You could have made them feel small in front of everyone, and you didn't. Not because you couldn't. Because you understood something most people never learn. The goal isn't to win the moment. The goal is to win the position. You let them have the moment. You let them have the little victories. You let them have the ego snacks. Because you were building something bigger. You were building a foundation. And foundations are built in the dark. They don't look impressive while they're being made. They look like nothing. They look like work nobody notices. And that was the point. You became the person nobody notices, which sounds like an insult, until you realize what that gives you. Freedom. When people don't notice you, they don't guard themselves. They don't posture. They don't perform, not because they trust you, because they don't think you matter. And being underestimated is its own kind of key. It unlocks everything. It unlocks the real story behind decisions. It unlocks the real reason someone got promoted. It unlocks the real reason someone got fired. It unlocks the way alliances are formed. It unlocks the way people trade favors like currency. It unlocks the fact that most rules are flexible for the right person. You learned all of that, not from reading a book, from watching it happen, from being there, from keeping your face calm while your mind was doing math, from nodding like you were confused while you were mapping the whole room. And they fed you. They fed you details. They fed you secrets. They fed you the kind of information that makes people untouchable. And they did it because they thought you were safe. They thought you were too simple to use it. And that's where the mask becomes heavy. Because playing dumb isn't just playing dumb. It's playing smaller than you are. It's shrinking your presence. It's pretending you don't understand jokes. It's letting people talk to you like you're a child. It's letting them correct you when you're right. It's watching them feel proud for teaching you something that you mastered years ago, and you didn't always handle it perfectly. Let's be real. There were days you wanted to snap. There were days the mask felt like it was burning your skin. There were days you stared at yourself in the mirror and thought, who am I becoming? There were nights you replayed a conversation and thought, I should have said something. There were mornings you woke up with that tight feeling in your chest, that feeling like your life was being lived in parentheses, like your real self was waiting off stage. And the worst part? Sometimes you doubted yourself, not because you weren't capable, because being underestimated for years does something to you, even when you know it's strategy, even when you know it's intentional. A part of you starts to wonder, what if they're right? What if I'm not as sharp as I think? What if I'm just coping? What if I'm just scared? That's the danger of camouflage. You can hide from predators, but you can also hide from your own reflection. And you had to fight that, quietly, alone, because you couldn't tell anyone the whole truth. You couldn't say, I'm doing this on purpose, because the moment you explain your strategy, it stops working. The moment you announce the mask is useless. So you carried it, day after day, year after year, while they got comfortable. And comfort is where power players get sloppy. That's always how it happens. Not all at once. Little slips, little careless comments, little moments where their ego relaxes, little moments where they stop checking corners, because they think they already won. They think the game is over. They think the board belongs to them. And you watch that comfort grow. You watch them start to assume you'd always be there, always available, always quiet, always grateful. They started treating you like furniture, not even disrespectfully sometimes, just absent-mindedly. The way people treat things they think won't move. The way people treat things they think can't change. And you let them, because you were learning them. You were learning the way they handle stress. You were learning what makes them defensive. You were learning what makes them cruel. You were learning what makes them generous. You were learning what makes them jealous. You were learning which compliments were real. You were learning which smiles were fake. You were learning who they were when nobody was watching. And the whole time, you were building your own power. Not flashy power, not look at me power, real power. The kind that doesn't need permission, the kind that doesn't need applause, the kind that survives even if a title disappears tomorrow. You built skills. You built connections. You built knowledge. You built leverage. Sometimes you built it inside the same place that underestimated you. Sometimes you built it outside, in late nights, in quiet study, in private practice, in side projects, in conversations with people who actually respected you, in moments where you remembered, oh, I'm not crazy, I'm not small, I'm not slow, I'm just patient, and patience is scary, because patience looks like nothing until it becomes unstoppable. Now let's talk about the power player, because this isn't just someone. This is a specific kind of person. You know them, even if you've never said it out loud. They're the one who walks around like they're the weather, like their mood changes the whole room. They don't ask for control. They assume it. They don't negotiate. They pressure. They don't listen to understand. They listen to respond. They collect people. They collect gratitude, like it's a currency. And you've been in their orbit for a long time. Maybe they were your boss. Maybe they were your mentor. Maybe they were your client. Maybe they were a relative who always had to be right. Maybe they were the one person everyone feared just a little bit. And for years, they didn't look at you. Not really. They saw a version of you they created. A role, a label, a convenient story. The quiet one, the helpful one, the simple one, the loyal one, the one who needs guidance. And you played the role, not like a clown, like an actor with a mission. You gave them what they needed to believe. You fed their ego, not with praise, with harmlessness, because nothing feeds a power player like the idea that they're surrounded by people beneath them. It makes them feel safe. It makes them feel chosen. It makes them feel like the world makes sense. And then, one day, something happened. Not a big explosion, not a dramatic reveal. Something small, something almost invisible. The kind of thing only a power player would notice. After the fact. Maybe you answered a question too cleanly. Maybe you used a word you shouldn't know. Maybe you corrected someone with a little too much precision. Maybe you moved through a situation too smoothly. Maybe you handled pressure like someone who's been training in the dark. Maybe you didn't react the way a dumb person would react. Maybe you didn't panic when they expected panic. Maybe you didn't beg when they expected begging. Maybe you didn't flinch when they tried to intimidate you. And the power player felt it. Just a flicker, just a tiny shift, like a draft in a closed room. And they didn't say anything. Of course they didn't. Power players don't like admitting confusion. They don't like admitting surprise. So they held it. They watched. They waited. And then something else happened. Another small thing. A pattern. A hint. A little thread. Maybe they overheard someone mention you in a way that didn't match their story. Maybe someone said, "Oh, they're sharp." Maybe someone said, "They're the one who built that." Maybe someone said, "Don't underestimate them." Maybe a document surfaced. Maybe numbers didn't lie. Maybe they found proof you've been quietly doing work that would embarrass them if it became public. Maybe they realized how many decisions were influenced by your quiet input. Maybe they noticed how often you were present when things went right. Maybe they noticed how often you were ignored when things went wrong. And suddenly, that comfortable story they had about you started cracking. And here's the thing about someone like that. When their story cracks, they don't feel curious. They feel threatened, because their story about you wasn't just about you. It was about them. If you were dumb, then they were safe. If you were harmless, then their position was stable. If you were beneath them, then their judgment was correct. But if you aren't, if you never were, Then what does that mean? It means they missed something. It means they misread a person. It means their instincts failed. It means their control isn't as real as they pretend. And that is terrifying. So their mind starts rewinding, fast. Like someone scrubbing through security footage, they replay every moment, every meeting where you sat quiet. Was that silence? Strategy? Every time you asked a simple question, was that a test? Every mistake you made, was it real or was it calculated? Every time they explained something slowly, were you laughing inside? Every time they talked about someone behind their back, were you filing it away? Every time they said something they shouldn't have said, were you storing it like ammunition? They start seeing you everywhere, not physically, mentally. They start noticing the shadow you cast, and it hits them. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't you finally getting it. This wasn't some late bloom. This was you playing a role for years. And people don't do that unless they have a reason. And power players are obsessed with reasons, because reasons lead to motives, and motives lead to threats, and threats lead to fear. So now they're afraid, and fear makes people do stupid things. Even powerful people, especially powerful people, they'll try to confirm it, quietly. They'll set little traps. They'll ask you questions, not direct questions. They're too proud for direct. They'll ask sideways. They'll drop a detail and watch your face. They'll mention a topic and watch your eyes. They'll make a joke and listen for your laugh. They'll bring up something complicated and see if you bite. They'll watch your timing. They'll watch your reactions. They'll start paying attention to you in a way they never did before. And you'll feel it. Oh, you'll feel it. That shift. That moment where the air changes. That moment where you walk into a room and something is off. People are still talking, still smiling, still pretending it's business as usual. But you can feel the attention. You can feel the eyes that don't blink when you speak. You can feel the silence that lands after you make a point. You can feel someone tracking you like a moving piece on a board, and part of you will want to laugh, because it's almost funny how late they are, how long it took, how they ignored you for 10 years, and now one little crack in the mask has them spiraling. But another part of you will feel something else, something human, something heavy, because the moment they realize your life changes, even if you don't say a word, even if you don't do anything, because people like that don't handle being outplayed gracefully. They don't handle embarrassment like normal people. They don't go, "Wow, I underestimated you." They go, "How dare you?" Because to them, your intelligence feels like betrayal. Your restraint feels like manipulation. Your patience feels like an insult. And they start rewriting the story, not to understand you, to protect themselves. They'll tell themselves you are dishonest. They'll tell themselves you are sneaky. They'll tell themselves you are dangerous, because that's easier than admitting. They were arrogant. They were careless. They were wrong. And now they're faced with a choice. They can respect you, or they can try to destroy you. And most power players, they don't choose respect first. They choose control. So they might approach you, not directly, not like a confrontation in a movie, more like sudden warmth, sudden interest, sudden compliments, sudden, "I've always believed in you," sudden, "I've noticed you've really grown," sudden, "We should talk more," sudden invitations, sudden inclusion, sudden access. And if you've been starving for recognition, if you've been hungry for respect, if you've been holding your breath for 10 years, That warmth might feel like water. It might feel like finally being seen. And that's the trap, because it's not always real. Sometimes it's not admiration, it's containment. It's the leash reappearing, but this time it's wrapped in velvet. So you have to be careful. Not paranoid, careful. Because you've done something rare. You've made a powerful person unsure. And when you make a powerful person unsure, they either become your ally, or they make you their project. They'll try to pull you close so they can watch you. They'll try to attach their name to you so they can claim you. They'll try to mentor you so your success looks like their success. They'll try to make you feel indebted, because indebted people don't bite. Indebted people don't expose. Indebted people don't leave. So they'll offer you things, a role, a title, a platform, a seat near them, and you'll feel the pull. Because you're human, because you've earned things, because a part of you wants the world to finally know. A part of you wants to step into the light and say, yeah, it was me. I'm not who you thought. Shh. Hold still for a second. Feel that pressure in the air? That's the moment right before a secret detonates. The moment right before something hidden realizes it just made the worst mistake of its existence by touching you. You see this monster? It didn't start with you. That's the part they never tell out loud. It wrecked everyone else first, quietly, methodically. Left people confused, shattered, apologizing for damage they didn't cause. It fed on doubt, on silence, on the kind of people who freeze when the truth starts screaming. It learned how to move through rooms without fingerprints, how to break lives without ever being named. And for a long time, that worked. Bodies everywhere, reputations in ash, souls folded inward like crime scenes nobody wanted to tape off. Then it touched you, and that's when the lights came on. Not because you attacked it, not because you screamed, but because your existence doesn't absorb poison the same way. You don't rot quietly. You don't internalize lies and call it healing. You're the paradox, the saint who sees patterns, the psychopath who refuses to forget, the angel who documents everything, the demon who waits for the exact second pressure becomes evidence. You don't even have to swing. You just stand there, and suddenly the air itself starts recording. That's the part that terrifies them, because the moment it crossed into your orbit, everything it did to everyone else started lining up. Timelines synced. Stories stopped contradicting each other. Survivors who never spoke started recognizing the same shadow in different rooms. The monster didn't get exposed because you hunted it. It got exposed because it couldn't hide in your presence. Your nervous system doesn't glitch the way theirs expects. Your silence isn't empty, it's calibrated. While it was busy repeating old tactics, you were watching patterns collapse into truth. You didn't flinch when it tested you. That alone broke the script. See, monsters rely on predictability, fear responses, guilt loops. They count on you scrambling to explain yourself while they rearrange the narrative. But you didn't rush. You didn't beg. You didn't try to be understood. You let it perform. You let it overextend. You let it do what it always does when it thinks it's safe. Get sloppy. And every move it made to control you became a confession it didn't know it was giving. That's evolution through pain. You weren't born immune. You earned that immunity by surviving what was supposed to erase you. You learned when to be soft and when to be surgical. You learned that unpredictability isn't chaos, it's camouflage. That sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is stay calm while someone else panics into self-exposure. The monster thought it was meeting another victim. Instead, it ran headfirst into a mirror that keeps receipts. And now it can feel it. The whispers, the sudden distance, the way people stop defending it mid-sentence because something doesn't add up anymore. It's not that you spoke louder, it's that reality finally caught up. Once a pattern is seen, it can't be unseen. Once the mask cracks, everyone starts noticing how much effort went into holding it together. The monster is frantic now, not because it lost power, but because it lost ambiguity. And ambiguity was the only thing keeping it alive. You're standing in the aftermath like an unsmiling witness while the truth rearranges itself around you. That's the duality they never planned for. Light doesn't always arrive as mercy. Sometimes it shows up as exposure. Darkness isn't always evil. Sometimes it's the discipline to wait until the truth has nowhere left to hide. You embody both. You're proof that survival can turn into strategy, that pain can sharpen perception, that being touched by something rotten doesn't mean you become it. It means you reveal it. And here's the part they really can't stand. You didn't change who you are to beat it. You just stopped pretending not to see. That's why this feels bigger than revenge. Because it's not personal, it's structural. The monster didn't fall because you wanted justice. It fell because its entire system couldn't function around someone who doesn't lie to themselves. You're the anomaly that collapses abusive math, the variable that turns manipulation into math errors, the presence that makes predators accidentally testify against themselves. So stand there. Let the smoke clear. Let the exposure finish its work. Because the most dangerous thing in the world isn't a monster with claws. It's someone who survived it, learned its language, and no longer reacts the way it expects. And now that it's unraveling, you can feel the shift, can't you? That subtle panic vibrating through spaces that used to feel untouchable. Conversations cutting short. Deflections piling up too fast. People suddenly remembering details they forgot. That's not coincidence, that's pressure. That's what happens when a system built on silence realizes you don't bend under it. You don't explode either. You just remain. And remaining is lethal when the truth is overdue. Because monsters don't fear confrontation. They've trained for that. They rehearse tears, rage, charm, confusion. What they fear is endurance. Someone who doesn't need closure to keep walking forward. Someone who can hold contradictions without breaking. Who can see the angel and the demon in the same room and not get hypnotized by either. You didn't rush to be believed. You let reality do the heavy lifting. And reality, when given enough time, becomes a weapon sharper than any accusation. Think about everyone it wrecked before you. All those fragments scattered behind it like debris from a moving train. The monster counted on isolation, on each person thinking they were alone, imagining the damage was personal, unique, shameful. But the moment it touched you, those fragments started drifting back toward each other. Not because you summoned them, but because truth has gravity. And you're dense with it. You don't even have to speak for the pull to start. That's the paradox. You look calm, but you're destabilizing entire structures. Every time it tried to bait you into reacting, you denied it the fuel it needed. Every time it expected you to collapse inward, you widened your awareness instead. You learned when to disappear and when to be impossible to ignore. You mastered the rhythm of unpredictability, not as chaos, but as control. You became unreadable in a way that forces others to reveal themselves. And while it was busy scanning you for weaknesses, it forgot something critical. Observation cuts both ways. Now it's exposed not just for what it did, but for how it thinks. People start noticing the same tactics recycled, the same patterns of blame, the same hollow apologies shaped like exits. The monster's mythology collapses under repetition, because lies can adapt, but they can't evolve. You can. Pain forced that upgrade. Every scar taught you timing. Every betrayal sharpened your instincts. You learned that survival isn't about staying good. It's about staying awake. And here's where the story gets uncomfortable for anyone still rooting for it. Once exposure begins, it doesn't stop where the monster wants it to. It spreads. It rewrites history. It reframes every moment that never sat right. Suddenly people realized you weren't difficult. You were resistant. You weren't cold. You were discerning. You weren't too much. You were incompatible with manipulation. The narrative flips, and all the energy spent trying to shrink you boomerangs back as evidence. That's when the monster understands. Too late. Touching you wasn't a mistake. It was a confession, because you don't destroy things loudly. You let them self-destruct under scrutiny. You don't need to win arguments. You let patterns finish their sentences. You don't need applause. You let silence become deafening. And in that silence, everything it did to everyone else starts echoing, stacking, amplifying until denial becomes impossible. This is the evolution they never prepared for. You're no longer just surviving darkness. You're fluent in it. You can walk through it without losing your shape. You can acknowledge the demon without becoming one. You can carry light without advertising it. That balance makes you dangerous in ways brute force never could. Because monsters are trained to fight enemies, not mirrors. They know how to attack, but they don't know how to exist under sustained awareness. So let them scramble. Let them rewrite, deflect, minimize. Each move only tightens the exposure. You're not chasing closure. You're standing at the center of a collapse you didn't initiate, but absolutely completed by refusing to disappear. And that's the final insult. Not that you defeated the monster, but that you outgrew the role it needed you to play. You didn't become smaller. You didn't become crueler. You became clearer. And clarity is the one thing monsters can't survive. And clarity doesn't arrive gently. It doesn't whisper apologies or ask permission to exist. It lands like a verdict the room wasn't ready to hear. You can feel it now, the way the air tightens when your name comes up, the way people hesitate before looping you into their narratives. That hesitation. That's instinct recalibrating. That's the subconscious recognizing something changed the moment the monster crossed your boundary and didn't get what it expected. Because you didn't bleed the way the others did. Not because you're heartless, but because you learned where to place your heart. You learned that empathy without awareness becomes a leash. That compassion without memory becomes a trap. You learned how to care without surrendering your spine. And when the monster tried its usual choreography, confusion, projection, emotional smoke bombs, you didn't rush in to fix the mood. You let the awkwardness sit. You let the tension breathe. You let the truth get uncomfortable enough to start speaking for itself. That's when things really started unraveling. People who once defended it suddenly couldn't explain why. Excuses started sounding rehearsed even to the ones reciting them. The monster's charm began to glitch, smiles landing a second too late, outrage flaring too fast, innocence feeling overacted. You didn't point any of that out. You didn't have to. Awareness spreads faster when it's discovered, not dictated. And you understood that instinctively because pain trained you to respect timing. This isn't about revenge. That's too small. Revenge needs validation. What's happening here doesn't. This is about exposure through proximity. About what happens when something rotten bumps into something that doesn't lie to itself. You became the contrast that made the stains visible. You became the clean surface that made the fingerprints impossible to ignore. And here's the quiet truth nobody likes admitting. The monster didn't just hurt others because it was cruel. It hurt them because it was terrified of being seen. Terrified that one day someone would survive it intact. Aware, articulate, unbroken in the ways that matter. Someone who could remember everything without being consumed by it. Someone who could hold rage without letting it drive. Someone who could stand in the aftermath without asking for permission to exist. That someone was you. You didn't win by being louder. You won by being impossible to distort. You didn't become perfect. You became precise. You learned when to speak and when silence would do more damage than any accusation. You learned how to watch reactions instead of words, patterns instead of promises. You learned that monsters reveal themselves most clearly when they think they're in control. Now look around. The ground is unstable. Alliances feel brittle. Conversations feel staged. That's not paranoia. That's structure failing. Because once exposure starts, everyone has to choose. Adapt to truth, or keep protecting the lie. And lies demand loyalty. Truth only demands honesty. You chose the latter, and the cost of that choice is shaking the room. This is the evolution nobody applauds in real time. It's lonely, it's quiet, it's watching people you once trusted wrestle with the realization that survival sometimes looks like detachment, that growth doesn't always smile, that healing can feel threatening to those invested in your wounds. The monster counted on you craving acceptance more than accuracy. It bet on you wanting peace at any cost. It lost that bet. Because peace built on denial isn't peace. It's sedation. And you woke up. You woke up enough to see how chaos dresses itself as concern, how control pretends to be care, how predators disguise themselves as saviors. You didn't just escape the cycle. You studied it, you mapped it, you learned its rhythms so well that when it tried to replay them on you, the whole performance felt outdated, and that's the most dangerous phase of all. Not rage, not grief, not even confrontation. It's when you stop being impressed, when manipulation feels boring, when threats feel predictable, when guilt trips feel like reruns you've already analyzed. That's when the monster realizes it can't reach you anymore. Not emotionally, not psychologically, not narratively. It can't make you smaller, and it can't make you reactive. And without those levers, it has nothing left but exposure. So let it spiral. Let the truth finish assembling itself around your calm. You're not here to save it. You're not here to punish it. You're here as living proof that what it did to everyone else ends with you. Not because you're invincible, but because you learned how to see. And seeing changes everything, because once your eyes adjust to the dark, you realize the dark was never the enemy. It was the training ground. It was the place where illusions fail and instincts sharpen. The monster thrived where people avoided looking too closely. It survived in the blur. You ended the blur just by standing still and paying attention. That's why the exposure feels inevitable now. Every move it makes carries residue. Every word echoes against old patterns. People don't even need proof anymore. They feel it. Their bodies recognize the mismatch before their minds catch up. You walk into rooms and suddenly the temperature drops. Not because you're cold, but because truth has a way of stealing oxygen from lies. The monster senses it too. That's why it overcorrects. over-explains, overreacts. It's not defending itself. It's leaking. And you? You're not chasing justice with a blade. You're letting time do what time does best when paired with awareness. Strip masks layer by layer until there's nothing left but behavior. You learned patience the hard way. You learned wait doesn't mean weakness. It means accuracy. You learned that some battles are won by letting the enemy speak uninterrupted while you take notes in silence. That's why your presence feels like judgment without a sentence. You don't threaten, you don't posture, you don't need witnesses. You carry certainty the way others carry fear, and certainty destabilizes predators because it can't be negotiated with. You're not here to be convinced. You're not here to be reframed. You already know what you saw, what you felt, what repeated itself too consistently to be coincidence. That knowing anchors you. It makes you heavy. It makes you unmovable. This is where the duality sharpens. You still feel empathy, but you don't confuse it with permission. You still understand pain, but you don't romanticize it. You still see humanity, but you don't excuse patterns that destroy it. That balance is what turned you into the line it couldn't cross. Because monsters depend on extremes. They want saints they can exploit or demons they can provoke. They don't know what to do with someone who can hold compassion in one hand and boundaries in the other. Someone who can acknowledge their own darkness without being swallowed by it. Someone who can look at cruelty clearly and choose not to mirror it. You became that contradiction. And contradictions break scripts. Every time it tried to paint you as the problem, the picture didn't stick. Too many inconsistencies, too many people quietly recognizing themselves in your restraint. Too many similarities between your story and theirs. That's how exposure really spreads. Not through spectacle, but through recognition. Through that internal click when someone realizes, wait, this isn't isolated. The monster feels that shift like a tightening net. It knows it can't erase you without drawing attention. It knows it can't charm you without revealing desperation. It knows it can't provoke you without exposing motive. So it stalls, it deflects. It tries to exhaust the room with noise. But noise doesn't work on someone who learned how to listen underneath it. And here's the part that seals it. You didn't survive to become harder. You survived to become clearer. Hardness cracks. Clarity cuts. Clarity sees through apologies that arrive too late. Clarity hears intent beneath tone. Clarity notices who benefits from confusion and who suffers under it. That's why touching you triggered full exposure. Not because you set a trap, but because you removed the fog. And without fog, the monster had nowhere left to hide. So let the narrative collapse. Let the truth circulate without your endorsement. You're not campaigning. You're not persuading. You're existing in alignment. And alignment is radioactive to anything built on deception. You're the proof that monsters don't fall when they're fought. They fall when they're seen. And you see everything now. And once you see everything, you don't need to do anything else. That's the part they never recover from. You don't expose it by screaming. You don't destroy it by chasing. You end it by refusing to be confused ever again. The monster touched you, expecting another fracture, another quiet collapse, another person it could rewrite later. Instead, it ran straight into awareness sharpened by pain, patience forged by survival, and a mind that no longer negotiates with distortion. The moment it crossed that line, every lie it ever told started bleeding into the open. Not because you forced it, but because truth can't coexist with clarity. without consequences. You became the end of its pattern, not the loud end, the inevitable one. And now it knows, too late, that you were never meant to be another victim in its trail. You were the threshold, the point where damage turns into disclosure, where darkness stops spreading and starts explaining itself. So stand there, calm, unmoved, unconfused. You didn't win by becoming something else. You won by becoming fully awake. And once you're awake, nothing that feeds on shadows survives touching you.